Harry Thomas, what is the greatest movie of all time?
Well, God, I will answer you that question in the finale of my review.
Why do the white girls call?
The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King. Now, this was the perfect way to conclude this epic landmark trilogy. It won 5 BAFTAs, 4 Golden Globes, 11 freaking Oscars. Not to mention the first fantasy film to ever win Best Picture, and 13 years later, it has never happened again since. But, so yeah, it's gonna be very hard for anyone to criticise Return of the King, even say one thing wrong with it and not get a ton of hate, because it's a film that's considered universally perfect. And do I agree? Yes, I do, 100%. Return of the King, I can gladly say, is not just the best in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. It is quite possibly one of the top 10, if not 5, greatest films of all time. Return of the Jedi is considered by everybody to be the weakest of the original Star Wars trilogy. Well, Return of the King is one of those rare third films of a trilogy that is definitely the best. And the Return of the King opens with this brilliant prologue of how Smeagol found the One Ring, killed his cousin Daegul, and became the Gollum that he is today. It's a very horrific, very dark opening that scared the living crap out of me when I first saw it, and it belongs in a horror film. It's so brilliantly done. And then we cut back to Merry and Pippin, who are celebrating the Ent's victory and Saruman's defeat in Isengard, and Gandalf, Theoden, Aragorn, Legolas and Gimli and Éomer all go to Isengard, meet up with Treebeard, and they decide Saruman's fate. Now, of course, in the theatrical version, they just decide to spare Saruman and let him live. And I personally don't mind that they cut it out of the theatrical version. Now, I know, you're all getting really angry. Just let me explain why. Because Saruman was already defeated in the Two Towers. He didn't really need to be in the Return of the King at all, and while we didn't get to see Christopher Lee in this movie, he did great contributions in the Two Towers, and it was great seeing him again in the Hobbit trilogy. So, and by the fact that they spared Saruman's life shows that they're better than him, they're not like him, so we can overlook that. And meanwhile, Gollum is truly putting his plan to kill Frodo and Sam and take the ring for himself into action, as they are literally this close to getting to Mordor now and destroying the Ring of Power. And Frodo, he is more than ever corrupted by the power of the ring at this point, so much so that he is beginning to completely distrust Sam when Sam's telling him the absolute truth, and just completely trusts Gollum at this point, which frustrates the audience, of course. And back in Eddorest in Rohan, Pippin finds out through the Palantir that Sauron is planning to strike Minas Tirith, capital of Gondor, as Sauron realises Elendil's heir, Aragorn, is returning to Gondor, and Sauron will do everything in his power to prevent that from happening. And while Arwen is heading off for the Grey Havens with the other elves, she sees this vision of her future with her and Aragorn's son, and this completely changes her mind about leaving. It's a genuinely beautiful moment. It's amazing how powerful a woman Arwen is. She is choosing to live a mortal life and give up her gift of immortality to be with the man she loves, and she realises it's time for Aragorn to turn to Gondor, so she has Elrond reforge the sword of Elendil and instructs him to give it to Aragorn. And meanwhile, Gandalf and Pippin arrive at the beautiful city of Minas Tirith, which is my favourite Middle-earth city by far. It is magnificently designed, and the cinematography and the scenery where they're running up the stairs of Minas Tirith to talk to Denethor, the Stuarts, is just beautiful. And when Gandalf and Pippin meet Denethor, he's a dick. Of course, Jeremy Jorns calls him Dickafor, and I can see why. Denethor, he doesn't give a crap about anybody but himself. He doesn't care that Sauron is about to destroy Gondor. He just wants to be in power, and he's devastated over the death of Boromir, and to which Pippin feels sympathy for him and offers him his... Gandalf instructs Pippin to light the beacons to call Rohan. Successfully does so. That's what I love about this movie. This is the movie where Pippin really grows up. We saw Merry grow up in The Two Towers, but Return of the King is ultimately Pippin's movie. And the scene where the beacons are lit and is just a magnificent shot with sweeping cinematography, a kick-ass Howard Shore score, and Theoden finally realises Gondor needs Rohan, so he orders the Rohirrim to be mustered at Dun Harrow. And meanwhile, Osgiliath has been overrun by a big-ass unstoppable orc army led by Gothmog, whose makeup is like this, just outstanding. And Gandalf saves Faramir and all the Gondorians who have retreated to Minas Tirith, and when Denethor instructs Faramir to retake Osgiliath, it's clear that Denethor... It's so sad that Denethor doesn't love Faramir. That's how much of an asshole he is. He basically sees Faramir as nothing in comparison to Boromir. And while the best Lord of the Rings scenes, period, is when Faramir and his troops are riding to Osgiliath ready to take it back, and Denethor instructs Pippin to sing him a song, to which Pippin sings this beautiful, haunting song, Edge of Night, that adds so much emotional weight to this scene, and it's all the more devastating when Faramir and his men are shot down. It's moments like these that make Lord of the Rings one of the greatest movies of all time. Gollum frames Sam for eating the bread, and Sam rightfully gets angry and beats up Gollum, and Frodo is manipulated by Gollum to believe that Sam actually wants the ring for himself when he clearly doesn't. Sam's trying to tell Frodo Gollum can't be trusted, he's an arsehole, but Frodo, again, he's just not listening, and it's so sad. It's devastating when Frodo tells Sam to go home. Gorn knows that they need reinforcements, and luckily Elrond arrives and gives Aragorn Narsil, the completed Sword of Elendil, and is like, become who you were born to be. Kind of like Simba in The Lion King. And so Aragorn, Legolas and Gimli, in one of the best parts of the film, they go into the mountain, they take on the King of the Dead, in which Aragorn reveals himself to be the King of Gondor, Isildur's heir, the one who commands them, and he asks them, will you fight for us and I will hold your oath fulfilled, to which the scene cuts away to the beginning of the greatest battle in film history. The action in this movie is mind-blowingly epic. It's an even step up. It even tops the Battle of Helm's Deep. Yes, it is that good. We have Gandalf commanding the Gondorians, who kind of suck at fighting, like the Stormtroopers, and Gothmog leading the Orcs to have siege towers and catapults, and fell beasts led by the Witch King throw troops down, and they breach the gates with the battering ram called Gron, and Gandalf's like, you are soldiers of Gondor, no matter what comes through that gate you will stand your ground, to which three ginormous big-ass trolls come in. Gandalf's like, oh crap, run. And yeah, as our hero seems screwed, Denethor believes Faramir is dead, and when Faramir's body is brought back, he tries to burn Faramir alive, the bastard, and Pippin tries to convince Denethor that he's not dead, but Denethor's not listening, so Pippin gets Gandalf, and they both kick some Stuart's ass, as in fact they save Faramir in time, and Denethor dies, catches fire, kind of like Kenny in the South Park movie, and he commits suicide by jumping off the 1,000-foot tall top of Minas Tirith. Meanwhile, Gollum has led Frodo into the trap, the biggest trap ever, to cinema's greatest spider, Shelob herself, and this scene was freaking intense and terrifying as Frodo's running through Shelob's lair, is trying to evade the spider, getting tangled in the webs, and as he escapes he realises Gollum tried to trick him. He should never have trusted Gollum, and he realises Sam was right, finally. So then, sadly, Shelob jabs Frodo with a stinger, paralyses him, and as she's about to dine on him, Sam thankfully comes back with the light of Lindian sting, all badass, and he's like, "Let him go, you filth," and he takes on Shelob, and you're like cheering, "Go Sam!" And Sam eventually beats Shelob. He goes over to check if Frodo's okay, but he sadly thinks Frodo's dead, even though he doesn't really check Frodo's heartbeat, and he lets a group of orcs take Frodo up to the top of the Tower of Cirith upon learning that Frodo isn't dead. Theoden thankfully arrives with the Rohirrim, and he gives this awe-inspiring speech, and the Rohirrim charge forward and just completely destroy the orcs. But then, all of a sudden, it seems the Rohirrim are pretty screwed too, as the Hirajim on their big Mummerkill, these giant 4-story elephants, arrive, and just things get epic, especially when the Witch King shows up and takes down Theoden, and Eowyn does the best thing she ever does in all 3 movies. She stands in the way of Theoden and takes on the Witch King herself, and it's the most girl powery scene of all time. And I've always wondered, why didn't Eowyn get with Merry? Aragorn brings an invincible army of ghosts, and you think, why didn't Aragorn just send these ghosts to Mordor before he let them go? In fact, if you had an army of the dead, eagles and ents, then Mordor would be completely screwed. Sam continues to prove that he's the biggest badass in this movie and this trilogy in general, as he just goes up to the Tower of Cirith full of orcs, takes them all on, and gets Frodo out of there. And the two finally reach Mordor. They're this close to victory. And after the battle, Theoden dies, and our heroes decide if Frodo is at Mordor now, we need to give him time, so we need to create a diversion so that Frodo has a chance. And when they get to the Black Gates, I know a lot of people complain about another extended scene being cut out, the mouth of Sauron scene. Again, I don't mind that they cut this scene out, because, well, this was the second time they did a Frodo fake-out death, as the Nostalgia critic said in his top 11 dumbest Lord of the Rings. Then Aragorn gives the greatest speech in cinematic history, where he's like, it is not this day we fight, and you like raise your swords in his honour, we are ready to take these bastards down for Frodo and Sam, and all these brave characters. And when Frodo and Sam are climbing up to Mount Doom, Frodo, the ring is completely weighing on him at this point, until Sam, he does the most epic thing ever. He carries Frodo on his shoulders, and you're like, whoa, Sam, you are the hero of this trilogy. You deserve all the credit. Frodo has done nothing. This Frodo reaches the crack of Doom, and all he has to do is drop the ring, and that's it. But then he turns around and says, "The ring is mine." And Sam's like, "No." And then Sauron turns, he sees the one ring is in the one place where it can be destroyed. He's like, "Nazgul, get the hell over there." So then Gollum arrives, bites Frodo's finger off, and that made me cringe when I first saw that. And he doesn't care that the world's about to end. He has his precious. And then Frodo gets pissed, and he wrestles Gollum for the ring, and they both fall over the side, and Gollum dies. The ring is destroyed. Sauron's destroyed. Our heroes celebrate Frodo's victory. And so basically Gollum's the one that saved Middle-earth. And Frodo and Sam, they think they're going to die, but luckily they're rescued by eagles, and that was fake out ending 1. Fake out ending 2 is that Frodo wakes up in bed, all our heroes are reunited. Fake out ending 3, Aragorn is crowned King of Gondor, marries Arwen, the hobbits are praised for their good deeds. Fake out ending 4, Frodo returns to the Shire, writes a book, goes off to the Grey Havens with Galadriel, Gandalf and Bilbo, says such an emotional goodbye to Sam. This is one of the saddest endings in any film period. I mean, The Return of the King is not just the most spectacular of the 3 films physically, it's also the most spectacular emotionally. It really hits you here. Frodo realises he doesn't think there's anything in this world for him anymore. It's changed. The ring has changed him too much. But thankfully, they're both happy and sad endings, which is what's so great about it. And Sam has a family, and the movie finally ends. Now, The Return of the King is just brilliant. It's magnificent. What can I say? And people may complain that it's too long and the multiple endings, but it needed multiple endings, otherwise the movie would have felt anticlimactic and unsatisfying. So, The Return of the King, it's a magnificent conclusion to an epic trilogy. I give The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King 5 stars out of 5. The movie is 3 hours and 12 minutes long, it just flies by. So what do you think of Return of the King? Comment, let me know. Please like and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time.